This is Super Team, a game about everyone's favourite sport, the football, where players are going to use a hand of movement cards to get that ball into the net. This is such a weird one to intro because it's just football, the board game. And I feel like I don't need to explain what football is. But before we continue with our preview of Super Team, it's important to mention that this is a super prototype. None of the pieces you can see here are in any way final. So how do you actually play Super Team? Well, you're going to be playing cards from your hand to take various actions on this board. But before we get to that, let's talk about the setup. Each player will pick a team tactics card, and a captain card, as well as the matching set of team cards to form their deck. You'll mix these unique team cards with a bunch of generic ones, draw a hand of 4, and then distribute your coach markers. These will be slotted into the 5 different aspects of football: pass, shoot, dribble, tackle, and gk, which stands for goalkeeper. These will determine players' effectiveness at taking each of these actions when they start playing the game proper. So let's kick off and show you how you play a round of Super Team. On your turn, you'll perform the following steps: restore, play, and draw. Once you've taken those 4 steps, you'll pass over to your opponent, and when you've reshuffled your draw deck a set number of times, will reach half time. 2 half times, and you'll get a full time, and the game will be over, and the person with the most football points will win. Goals. They're called goals, Tom. But let's talk about that turn structure and zoom in a little bit. It's incredibly simple when it comes down to it. First, players will restore, activating any inactive pieces that are laying down by standing them up. Then you will play up to 3 cards, placing each one face up in your discard pile. You must play 1, but you can play up to 3. And then you will draw back up to 4 cards. But let's zoom in on that play phase where you're playing those cards to take actions. Now each of these cards will have a generic set of icons at the bottom, a movement and an action icon. And playing a card for movement is incredibly simple. You just take the piece and move it up to 2 spaces. After a movement, you will make that piece inactive by lying it down, and inactive pieces can be continued to be moved by paying morale tokens. Your other option with a card is to take an action, and there are loads of these, but they're all very simple. Let's say I wanted to pass the ball from this player to this player. I'll go through a 5-step process. I'll select a target, I'll determine the power, which is the number of spaces between me and the target. I can use morale, paying these tokens to improve my chances, and then you will roll dice, taking the green die as standard and adding in these white ones if you've got coach markers in that stat. If I've got 2 in pass, I'll add 2 of these white dice into my roll. You'll then roll and work out if you succeed. Essentially, any number that is greater than 0 will be a success. So here, I've rolled a 4, that pass is happening. Passing is the most straightforward, but the other actions still go through the same process of selecting targets, determining power, using morale, and rolling dice, and then working out the result. But some actions might be blocked by an opponent, which will reduce your die roll by 1 for each opponent in the way. And from here, the actions are super straightforward. Shooting for goal acts exactly the same way as any other action, but with the addition of these strike tiles that might let you slip past the goalie. Dribbling will let your ball carrier slip between opponents, and tackling is a way for the defence to get the ball back. And all of these are resolved in the same way, determining the power, taking dice based on your coach markers, and rolling them. But you can also use these cards, which so far we've just been using for generic movements and actions, to perform tactics. Now each one of these tactics shows a set of instructions that the player might carry out. If you're offensive, for example, this represents a forward pass, and if I manage to complete that forward pass, I'll get 2 free movements and a morale. This is how you get these lovely little stat boosting tokens over here. And lastly, in your deck, you have these unique captain and coach cards that will give you one-off bonuses that break the game a little bit. The captain cards will give a bonus that can only be used by your captain, and the coach card will break the game in a weird and interesting way. Your team also has their own unique ability, and your captain has a special power too. And that is Super Team, a pacey 2-player dueling football game where the player who scores the most goals by full time will